Welcome to the Living Medicine Podcast, where we talk about ethical medical use of psychedelic psychotherapy, teaching skills, examining the issues, and interviewing interesting people. Now let's start today's show.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Sandy Newis of the Living Medicine Institute. And this is the Living Medicine Podcast, which is sponsored by the Living Medicine Institute, which is a business where we provide training and content and resources for clinical and medical professionals that are interested in psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, with a particular emphasis on ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. And I'll just do a gentle plug. We have a retreat coming up in April 23rd to 26th, if anybody's interested in that. But I am delighted today to have Marcela Ot'alora with us, and I'm sure most of you know who she is, but she is one of the original MDMA trainers, along with her partner Bruce and Michael and Annie Mithofer, and there's been others since then, but you all are the pioneers in that, so I just want to acknowledge that. So that means getting the research going, getting the training going, helping to develop the clinical model, and essentially spreading that all over the world. So it's really an honor. So I'm going to just kind of talk a little bit about the bio here. And so for more than 2 decades, Marcela was born and raised in Colombia, really focused on the research and the safety and efficacy of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for the treatment of PTSD. She's a psychotherapist, an artist, and a researcher living in Boulder, Colorado. Deeply rooted in her maternal traditions kept her alive through storytelling. She honors her grandmother's belief that to make a positive difference in this world, our work must be a manifestation of our love. She is deeply grateful to the women in her family for their bravery and resilience through love and the celebration of compassionate and caring relationships. And she's been a principal investigator, therapist, mentor, consultant, and trainer for phases 1, 2, and 3 for clinical trials for MAPS and Lykos Therapeutics. So she has an MA in transpersonal psychology from Naropa and currently lives in Boulder, and has launched a new program called Memoru, which we'll be happy to hear a little bit about. So thank you so much for being here, Marcela. I really appreciate it. I honor you and all that you have done to get here in this moment, and you've influenced all of our lives. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. So I'll just say, I know Marcela because everybody in psychedelic assisted psychotherapy knows who Marcela and Bruce are, Michael and Annie are. So there's this conceptual piece. But I also had the privilege of hearing you talk at the Psychedelic Assisted Psychotherapy Conference that is coming up in February. If anyone's interested, Ron Siegel and his team put that on. And you gave just such an excellent talk about some of the clinical how-tos and how we can use our body and how we can access our own sense of knowing. That got me really excited. And then I was able to have the privilege to go to Sarajevo and actually participate in the MAPS MDMA certificate training. So I was able to spend time with you there and, really appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it was lovely to have you there.
Yeah, well, thanks. That was an interesting place to be doing MDMA training, I'll have to say. Like, just for me as an American, being in a nation that had suffered so much with war and having other people from other nations that were suffering from war was certainly made me aware of my own privilege. I'll say that. Yeah.
Yes.
So I always like to start off with this by just how did you get to be stage 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials and best primary investigator? What was your pathway to getting there? And I'm aware, you often speak of your, Colombian roots and, it's mentioned in your bio. And so, I'm also just kind of being curious about the terms of how you got there, how that plays itself into it.
Yes, and it wasn't like I think it usually is. It wasn't like a planned piece. It wasn't like I was looking for it in any way whatsoever. But I did early on in my life, in my early 20s, when I came to the States, I had I had sort of run away from traumatic experiences in my life, and as we know, we can't really run away from them. And so I tried many different things and nothing really, a few things worked a little bit, but nothing really worked to be able to help me live the life that I wanted to live until I was offered MDMA.
Interesting.
And so for me, MDMA assisted therapy was the turning point. It was like, it was the first time I encountered a part of myself that was actually not traumatized. And
Mm-hmm.
so it really changed the trajectory of one, the way I saw myself, and two, the possibilities that I had in my life to move
Oh,
forward.
interesting.
Yeah.
How old were you, if you don't mind me asking? At
I
least
was
approximately.
23.
Uh-huh. Interesting. And was it kind of a therapeutic environment or was it
Oh
more?
yes, it was in a therapy context.
Oh, interesting.
The year before it was criminalized.
Oh, huh,
Yeah.
huh. So you actually got into the kind of the end of the legal
Yes.
piece. Interesting. And so then, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is too personal for where we're at, but like, what was it like for you to come out of that and experience yourself as not traumatized? Like you said, it opened up possibility. Like, can you just say more about that? Because that's super interesting.
Yeah, and it was like I think it was the beginning of also understanding that it wasn't about getting rid of anything. It wasn't about getting
Mhm.
rid of the trauma, and that in my experiences in life that I was not going to do that, that wasn't going to happen, and
Mhm.
that it was still possible to experience recovery and healing even
Yeah.
though those pieces would always be there.
Mm,
So I think in my throughout my life, it has been living with those experiences in
mm,
a different way, knowing
mm.
that at times they're in the forefront
Yeah.
and I struggle and I suffer with them, and that it's not the same kind of suffering that was before, where it would just really throw me over,
Mm,
right? So it's almost like you jump into a little bit of an abyss, but you don't go all the way down, 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 where you have to climb out of some hole that takes
yeah.
forever to climb out of. So that's what it was like. And and I have to say that it was also not the easiest thing that we think of when something good happens. Oh, it's
Mm,
something great and we move forward. It took many years to really work with it. And
mm.
it also it was an adjustment to see myself as somebody who was not suffering all the time. And and that was something I had to get used to.
Oh, that's interesting. That,
Yeah, like
that's really interesting.
I remember writing a letter to a friend of mine, and she was somebody who really supported me and had seen me in that state of
Mm,
being of suffering a lot. And I was writing her a letter, and I wanted to say, I'm doing really well.
mm.
And I couldn't get it out.
Oh, interesting.
I
Like you
was
just
so
couldn't say
afraid.
it. Yeah.
I couldn't say it. It was so scary to say,
Mm,
I'm doing really well. And I was like, it just took me a while, right? It was
mm,
like a stepping into a threshold of this is something new and how scary it is. And will it be taken away? Would
mm,
would people not be there with me if I say it? All those things came to me, but I remember distinctly. I remember where I was sitting and just going, just write it,
mm.
and it was hard.
Yeah. That's so interesting because I've been kind of working at sort of hypothesis for a while about, what if at least a very significant part of psychedelic assisted psychotherapy was actually opening up people to being able to feel well and then to help them feeling like safe, feeling okay.
Yes.
Like, and sometimes it feels like I feel like we should be doing that too, besides just like driving towards the bad. Like you said, it just magically gets erased. Well, it doesn't. It's that shift in state. And I just feel like helping people. This is from my friend Katie Asmus, who is also from Boulder. She says, can we help people? Can we feel okay? Can it be okay to feel okay when things are okay? Like, and
So
could that be like one of the goals?
yes, yes, exactly. And can we embody that okayness, right? Like, can we just really embody that feeling? And it's not until you can really embody it that you go, oh, I can spend time here
Mm,
and
hmm.
I can cultivate this feeling of, um, like enjoying this moment where I'm sitting and the sun is coming in through the window and I'm just like totally okay. And
Mm-hmm.
just being in that moment is
Mm-hmm.
exquisite, right? What a privilege that is.
Yeah, I love that. Right. And just to feel okay, And I feel like it's sometimes people get so into like we have to process the trauma or the thing and we have to get to the root of it. And sometimes sometimes it seems like it's a lot about state shift and then being able to just recognize that shift in the state.
And sometimes the joy and the being okay is what needs to be processed
Mm-hmm.
and dive deep into if we
Yeah.
haven't experienced that thought in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so did you just kind of then find your way to trials or did trials find you or like, how did that
Well,
work?
I early on during that time, I met Rick Doblin.
Mm-hmm.
So I met him through a mutual friend, and I worked with him. So it was the beginning of a long relationship. We still are very good friends, and I was just like, I want to do this. I want to. I was an art teacher at the time, and I just said, I really want to help this cause. There needs to be other people that can benefit from this that I've seen, um, even having been in a psychiatric ward, it was all those people there came to mind. Why
Mm-hmm.
could some of these people would benefit so much from this medicine? How is it
Yeah.
possible that we're not um, that we can't, right? And then the next year when it got criminalized, it was really hard. And so I think it started that journey for me and for Rick, that he felt, okay, this is possible. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is a good medicine to work with trauma.
Mm. So
And
you knew him before he got his PhD and all of
yes,
that. Like, okay. So you've been part of it from the very beginning.
yes.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
So Um, so I think it took me a few years I mean, I went to graduate school for art and kept teaching art and then it was time, then I went back to school to study transpersonal psychology because I felt like, okay, this is how I prepare for that time when this is going to be able to be legal again. This is how I prepare. And so I went back to school, moved to Colorado to go to Naropa University because
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to study transpersonal psychology. I felt that it was very aligned with psychedelic work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I got to that place. And then the study in Spain was available, and I was able to join that team and move to Spain. So that was good.
What year was that?
It was 1998, I think, or 99.
Interesting. Yeah, because I started tracking. I was getting my master's degree in 1993 to 95 in Northern California. And that was when I first became aware. I was like, there's like some research going on, it seems like, like, ooh, let's track this. So,
Mhm, mhm.
um, well, so since that time, as you know, most people know, like MDMA has gone through ups and downs and, 3 clinical trials, and the FDA was involved in developing the research, from what I understand, over 20 years. And then at the last minute, it doesn't get approved, which is just, interesting to me that I was literally sitting there watching the hearing after I had just finished the training. So I can only imagine what I felt, how that must have been for you and Bruce and everybody else that had been involved with that. That's just like, I remember having the feeling of, my breath being sucked out and just what that must have meant for all of you. And, so, is there anything you want to share about that, the other turns in the MDMA world, kind of where the psychedelic assisted psychotherapy world is currently, parts you'd like to share about, parts that were hard, parts you're currently excited about? What would you just like to say about that?
Yeah. Well, I remember the time too because I started listening to it when I was in the airport
Mm,
after
hmm
the training. and I started listening to it. And I think my feeling was actually dissociation. I
Mm-hmm.
think I dissociated
Right.
because I think it felt so foreign what I
Mm,
was listening to. It was like everything that was being said, I was not understanding.
mm,
I was going like, but that's not what happened. Or like I
mm,
couldn't recognize it. I couldn't
mm.
recognize what it was that they were saying. And so I think I felt a little bit like gaslighting. It felt
Yeah.
like gaslighting. And so I
Mm,
think I dissociated. And it was a shock of like something is going on that doesn't make sense. The dots don't connect. What they're saying is not what happened, and many things, right? Or even even I was very saddened by sort of like the dismissiveness of the experience of some of the participants that were speaking, um, which I feel in the world now, right? That we dismiss the actual experience of the people that have
mm,
done the work, that have suffered, that have shown us so much about what it works and what doesn't work. Um, so that part was hard for me. And I remember Bruce saying, I can't listen anymore. I just
mm,
can't. And I kept
mhm.
listening. I kept listening, but I think I was just in this altered state. Um, and so then I think I was numb
Yeah,
and
I'm sure.
couldn't feel much because then then it was a process. It took me a
Mm,
while to get unfrozen. It
mhm,
was definitely like a trauma response. I think it was,
mm,
I've never actually thought that, but I think now as I'm saying it, it was a trauma response and I needed my body to thaw out and then begin to have my feelings of
mhm,
mostly just grief, just like
mm,
a lot of grief of the possibilities that were being taken away. I had had people that had wanted to be in the trials and hadn't been able to be in the trials, and I kept communicating with them, and people would say, let me know when it gets approved. I
right.
will come and do the work. And so there were people for years that had written to me that had told me about, a loved one that they wanted to work with this medicine.
Mm,
And then to say to them all, I can't.
mhm,
It's not going to happen. Was so sad,
mhm,
sad. And we can make up. I have lots of stories of what happened, right? Lots of
mhm.
stories. I don't know them all. I don't really know. There's a lot of assumptions there, but I do know that the truth is that I didn't recognize so many things and that there were so many things that we did to for the safety of the participants, for the integrity of the study. There was so much, adherence that was done. We did so much supervision,
Mm.
watching video after video after video of every session.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then meeting with the therapist and talking to them about these sessions that we had just watched. I mean, we're talking watching 8-hour sessions
Right. Which
and
is just like amazing. Like,
and
we're just
write
like,
yeah and
yeah.
writing notes and then meeting with them and then adherence raters watching all the
Right.
sessions and looking for the adherence. And I mean, it was diligent work. It was a lot of beautiful supervision and holding and supporting each other, and none of that came through.
Well, and it's so interesting because I was trained as a psychotherapy outcome researcher. I went to Penn State and that was a real, that was my PhD. And I applied psychotherapy research outcome methodology to adventure and wilderness therapy, which it doesn't sound like psychedelics, but it has a very similar, like multidisciplinary perception of risk, takes place in a different environment, longer sessions. They take place outside of the office context. And there's something different that's happening there. And it's also a non-ordinary state. You're out of the office.
Right.
And well, that's just relevant because like the process of applying research methodology to a new and emerging field and, languaging it from that perspective anyway was what I was doing. So when I saw this research, I'm like, this is the best, novel intervention psychotherapy outcome research study that could ever be designed. Like it like literally checked every single one of the boxes. So from my perspective, I'm like, wow, they really did this well. Like the researchers knew what they were doing. And then they'd obviously consulted with the FDA and, we're just going to make sure that there's nothing that can go wrong with this. So, from a research methodology perspective, like it's just, it was shocking.
Yeah, it was a shock. And then, and then there's a process of getting to this place of like, I could stay here in this place of devastation, of anger, of all the emotions that came with it, or I could just keep moving.
Hmm.
It's like I stopped for a while, like my feet could move, and then I could start moving again. And what does that mean? And what does that look like? Um, continuing to do the trainings has helped in terms of staying connected to the work and staying connected to MDMA therapy, working with people that are actually able to do it, which I feel so jealous about.
Right.
So sometimes when I work with people and in Australia and Switzerland and the Netherlands, and it's like, oh, what? How is it that they get to do it, and how wonderful that they get to do it?
Right. But
What a
I can imagine. You're just like, I thought I was going to be doing this. Like I've spent my entire life preparing for
yes,
this moment
I
that
that
didn't
is like
happen.
that was the plan, right? That was the plan.
Uh-huh.
That's where I was heading, and so then it was like, okay, the amazing part was that I live in Colorado, and then here, psilocybin getting approved, and
Hmm.
psilocybin is something that I has been dear to my heart as well. I'm beginning to understand it better and to
Hmm.
get to know it. Like I felt like I had this sort of intimate relationship with MDMA. And
Hmm.
then
That makes
is
sense.
can I begin to develop an intimate relationship with psilocybin? And can it be not as a comparison, but as its own standalone, right? And I did that with ketamine. I felt like ketamine was very much a standalone, this wonderful compound that could really help in these different ways. And so I worked a lot. I've worked many years with ketamine, and it has been wonderful in so many ways. And I was very aware that I did not want to compare it. And I
Hmm.
think with ketamine, it was easier because, it's a shorter session. It's just
Right.
so different. But psilocybin is not quite, it's not, even though they're so different, there are some similarities that overlap that would be easier for me to just compare and say,
Hmm.
which one do I like better?
Hmm. What are the similarities?
Well, I think the similarities are the intimacy with oneself,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to expand, right? To be porous to our environment and to take in what is offered from all kinds of different areas, right? Like spiritually and the reality of the moment and ancestors and um that there's this non-ordinary state that is similar,
Mm.
even though that the expression is different, right? Like the relationship is still there, very much so with the therapist, but mm, it is almost like I feel that like I used to feel with MDMA that there was the MDMA around us, and
Mm.
that my co-therapist and I and the participant were putting all this stuff into the middle, all this stuff that went into the middle, and we were looking at it, and exploring it and being curious about it. What is it? What's happening there? And I think with psilocybin, it's more an internal
Mm,
relationship that the participant is having. And
mm,
I am there to hold a space and witness. It looks similar in integration. They're
mm-hmm.
very similar in integration, but in the actual medicine experience, it can look very different.
Oh, interesting. It's really rare to talk to somebody who, has deep wisdom and experience with all of the above. So that's I'm super, really, thank you. I'm really curious about, because people out there in the world tend to lump them together and I'm really curious what your thought of is about, psilocybin being a sacred plant. Like, is there something that in your belief system and your experience about, the sacred plant entity or the sacred plant spirit as being, just, I guess I won't say any more about that. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, yeah. For a long time, some of the questions that were asked of me when I was doing an interview was around MDMA as a synthetic, right?
Mm,
Like here's this synthetic. Um, but I said, but a person made it.
mm-hmm.
And so it's still like a human being that has all these identity and connection and all this lineage of how they came to be in the world, right?
Yeah.
What is it? I can't remember the number, but it's like 4,000 people had to be alive in order for me to be alive now.
Whoa. That's a lot of influence.
And so, and so that all goes into that. And so
Mm,
I definitely felt the spirit of MDMA
mm-hmm.
and as a synthetic. And what I discovered with psilocybin is that one, there's many different strains, right? Like there's so
Mm-hmm.
many different strains of psilocybin, which is so different than MDMA. MDMA is just MDMA, and
Right.
you can either, it can be mixed with things that you can look at the purity of it and how pure it is, but it's MDMA, and if it's enough, like 95% pure, it's pretty similar, right? It all looks kind of the same. And with psilocybin, it's not like that at all.
Mm,
Every plant's going to be different,
right.
no matter how how you cultivate them together. And the different strands are so different, and they have these different energies. And I
Mm-hmm.
have seen them from doing groups. So I did a group with, you know, um, a, a strand called Golden Teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like what it sounds like. It's like this teacher that is right there, and it's soft, and invites you to explore things. And then there's Louis Vuitton.
These strains.
And it has a little bit of this trickster energy,
Mm,
like try this or like go down this little road and like like it has this different energy. And then there's these other ones that have this different energy. And it was so interesting for me to work with a group of people with one medicine one weekend, and then the next weekend work with a group of people with another medicine,
fascinating.
with the same medicine but a different strand.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Like same set and setting, same team.
Same set
Oh,
and
that's so interesting.
yes.
Right.
And so I think there's more of that, right? Like we're getting more of something from the earth that is coming to us, and that it depends on what the plant is, what how this got cultivated, what the strand is, right? And so that in itself is so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because then it's not that everybody's going to have the same experience, is
Mm,
that everybody is going to have this quality coming towards you, and then how it mixes with you is different, right?
That's so interesting. Like because very few people are talking about the role of the different strands. And I conceptually know there's like a bazillion different strands and have enough experience of my own to be like, these are qualitatively different. And yet in the world, we're still talking just about, psilocybin. And it's just like cannabis became like, it's like cannabis is not cannabis. Maybe it is for some people, but it's certainly not for me.
Yeah.
Like, and so I love the fact that hopefully the deeper knowledge will continue to evolve in
Yes.
ways.
That we can continue to learn. And I'd like to continue to learn so that I can actually offer somebody saying, oh, based on what you're saying, I think maybe this trend would be better for you than this
Mhm,
one.
mhm.
Like making some suggestions that way. And I'm definitely not there. So,
Yeah. Well, that's just seems again like it's like I had the privilege of being with Trad Cotter. You may or may not know him. He does some work in Colorado, and he's a mushroom expert. And just listening to him talk, and this was in Costa Rica, listening to him talk about the different strands, and just realizing like, whoa,
yes,
like, this is, I mean, I think he'd be like, yeah, duh. But like, the science and the botanical exploration of all the strains of fungi and, and all the different elements that go into that, and then how that's going to impact with us as humans is a lot. There's a lot
yes,
there. Like,
yes. I think of all the insects that came to this particular plant and didn't go to this other plant. Like, I mean, I'm fascinated with insects, so I think about that, like their energy and
Well, and how, from that perspective, that what that brings up for me is responsibility. Like how can we as practitioners, if we're going to be working with, that medicine in its myriad of different things, but ultimately all of them, like that just kind of opens it back up again. What do we need to know? You do training, I do training. What does the world need to know about how can we do this responsibly and ethically and avoid doing harm? When, I mean, just your simple example that you said, there's like so many different possibilities with psilocybin, and we're, really new into this world. So this is kind of speaking to your like trainer side, but also your wisdom keeper side. Like, how can we keep people safe and hold this space well and responsibly, and also even ourselves as practitioners?
yes, yes. So not comparing it has been, at the beginning I was a little worried about that, like
Hmm.
because if I'm going to do something and I'm going to go and I'm going to say, oh, I wish I was doing MDMA instead,
Right.
then I wouldn't be a good psilocybin practitioner, right? Like
Hmm.
I wouldn't be able to really support somebody if
Yeah.
that were the case. And it
Mhm.
hasn't been, and I'm glad that it hasn't been.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good. I love that. And do you think that the piece about like, okay, well, let me just kind of go into that a little bit more then. Like, if somebody is new, to the field of psilocybin, like somebody who's just getting trained, or even, let's hope that MDMA comes on the horizon, or even ketamine, which has never been
Yeah.
illegal. Like you've done a ton of training and now you've moved into a deeper dive into psilocybin. Like, what do people need to know to do this work well and responsibly, ethically, but also well? Like, how do we prepare ourselves as practitioners?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, that's such a great question. And it's so um it's so difficult to answer because it's so varied, right? Like it's not just one thing.
Hmm.
Um and it's but every time when I think about it, I keep coming back to us as practitioners,
Mm,
to us as being able to be aware enough of ourselves. What is it that what is it that triggers us? What are our strengths? Where does our fear sit and why does it sit there?
mm,
And how did it come to be?
mm,
And how does it respond to somebody else's fear? And can just that awareness of being able to really distinguish who am I and who are you and who are we together so that I don't have to leave myself outside the door.
Mm,
Because I think if we have to leave ourselves aside the door, we might not cause harm, but we're not showing up fully.
hmm. Well, that's so interesting. That's so many multiple layers. Like some trainings that teach you you're not supposed to be authentic, how do we manage our
How
own trauma response? How do we show up in deep authenticity while also being professionally impactful? What
yes,
happens if we're having a bad day? You know,
yes.
how can you
And
manage your
then
own authentic present self is what
yes,
I'm hearing.
and that in that is complicated, right? Because it's not about then I'm bringing myself in and it's not about my needs, right? It's not about my needs that are going to get met, but it is about my feelings and what has been what the experience that is happening in the room, how it's affecting me, right? That is part of what the dynamic that is happening in the system. And
Mm,
then how as a clinician, I really understand how this part of my needs is not part of it,
mm,
but part of my authentic experience is,
yeah.
and that's what I'm bringing forward. And how does that impact the person that I'm sitting with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like they, I think participants deserve the best of us.
Yeah.
What is the best of us? Even if I'm having a bad day, what is the best of me that I can then bring forth? And then in that sense, I'm not going to bring in the having the bad day,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
right?
that's interesting. Totally. Oh, did I just interrupt you? Did you want to say more
No,
about
no,
it?
no. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Because that kind of leads me to, one of the things that we were talking about was attunement.
Yes.
You talk about attunement in all of your trainings, but attunement is a word I think that is thrown around. And what I have witnessed with you is your ability to talk about that in a very detailed way. Like, how do we help clients attune to their own internal? Because I'm looping this into like, how can we be most present with our clients? Like, how can we, tune into our own felt sense of ourself? How do we tune into our clients? And then how, you know, what if we don't have a felt sense of that? Like, just, can you just speak to that? Like, how can we work more effectively with that? Because that's what I hear in that. Like, how can we, leave our stuff over here, still be authentic and present, but also be deeply attuned? Is that accurate?
Yeah. I mean, an attunement is very slippery, but
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we can't just grab it and say, okay, this is attunement. And it's very mercurial, right? It just floats around. And so we can sort of touch it and move it and play with it, but you can't completely like hold it because then you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then it's very elusive. And so um I really I like Thomas Hubble. I listen to some of his work in his meditations. I do some of his meditations, and I really like something that he said, that its presence is I'm not going to do him justice, but he said presence is integrated history.
Mm,
And so if we know what is integrated in us in our history, what has been integrated, and how that is part of who we are,
mm,
then we can attune, because then we can be present.
mm,
We're not aware of what is not integrated,
yeah.
then we're not going to be able to attune, because we're going to be self-conscious.
Mm,
I always think like you can't attune if you're self-conscious.
mm,
And what makes us not self-conscious is really an understanding of what is integrated in us of our history and what is not, and what is the impact of that. What is
mm,
the impact of that integration, of that integrated history? And I think when history is not integrated, when our experiences are not integrated, we are frozen.
mm,
And when we freeze, We can't attune. And I think attunement is the feeling of expansion.
Mm,
When I am sitting with somebody and I feel open and expanded and centered, I am completely there knowing what this person is feeling, really, like being able to connect too deeply to something that they are presenting and they are sharing with me. And it has nothing to do with understanding,
hmm
nothing to do with, I don't need to understand it at all. I don't need to know it. I don't need to understand it. I just need to be with, right? And I can't be with if I'm not porous and
mm,
open and it's like, oh, I get you, right? Like I feel you. I feel
mm,
you in my being.
hmm Interesting. So that kind of branches a little bit into spirituality because that's actually an interest area of mine. You happen to use a word that I'm working with a lot in my own life right now, like the pros and cons of having porous energetic boundaries. Because there also be a downside of that?
Yes.
Like, so what would that be? Like I mean, you're advocating for porosity, which others I've heard are kind of like, well, we have to protect ourselves, right? So it's like, how can we be porous? And this would be with clients, but also, just kind of an awareness of the energetics and all the transpersonal and all that that might be. How can we maintain porosity while also being protected and not merging? And
Yeah.
when, you see where I'm going with this, like when is merging appropriate? How do we also keep a separate sense of self? How can we protect ourselves energetically and therefore our clients? How can we have a bad day and still have to show up at work? To bring it a little
Yeah.
more into the earth plane. But
Yeah.
any thoughts about that?
Yeah. That's a great, it's a great way to kind of approach it. And, I think about like sort of like emotional spillage, like if we
Mhm.
emotionally spill over, our feelings spill over, and then all of a sudden you're knowing like, oh, like my stuff is sort of coming onto you. I
Mhm.
think that's so different than attuning because it's not actually merging, right? It's not about merging into, but it's about feeling into what the person in front of me is doing. And that has an effect on me. And then I have feelings about that, right?
Mhm.
So I am being affected by them, not by myself in that moment, but I am being affected by them. So what is being porous has everything to do about them and
Mhm.
how they affect me also. But it's not about my history,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? I'm not bringing that part in. I'm swimming in that and feeling it around my own sphere and going like, wow, that touched this piece in me
Mhm.
and I can feel it from something else, right? But what I can come forward with is how I'm being affected by them.
Mhm. Well, that makes sense to me. I can see how the integration piece then becomes critical in that.
Yes,
Like I feel like we're always going to have parts of us that are more integrated than other parts, but we need to make certain that the unintegrated parts aren't leading the attunement because then
exactly.
it's going to be misattuned. I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Then you're only going to attune to a part of them, not a whole of them,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And we need to attune. If we're going to attune to every part, then it's going to be how do we move into that? And
mhm.
that has nothing to do with me, even though I am completely present.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with me because it's really about um, being affected by them.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm also curious, kind of, you've talked about the role of spirituality in this kind of work and the role of spirituality in psychedelic work in general, and now you're moving more into working with the sacred plants, which again, I'm just tracking for many people. If there's a different spiritual, I'm curious. It's a hypothesis of mine. How do we recognize that part? And you went to a transpersonal master's program, and
Hmm.
so how do you integrate spirituality into all this? What's your view of those pieces? And the role you've talked in the past, I've heard you talk about the role of spirit in recovery from trauma, and
Hmm.
kind of how do we create the opportunity for that and different cultural pieces, and just kind of whatever you might want to say about that.
Um, I I think my feeling around spirituality is similar to my feeling around art,
Hmm.
mostly because art is part of my spiritual practice, um, which is that it's just not separate.
Yeah.
It's something that is outside of me or separate than me,
Hmm.
right? So if we think of it as not something that we, um, oh, like now I'm going to, maybe it is like, maybe now I'm going to pray or I'm going to intentionally meditate, and that's going to be my spiritual practice. Or so, I mean, I think we all have different people have different spiritual practices, and that's great. So that's not really what I'm talking about. I think what I'm talking about in terms of spirituality is a part of uh, who we are that does never leaves us,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is always a constant. So I don't like stop to do art, and that's when I feel it. Is can I be in touch with it? Can I, and it's not going to be all the time, of course, we're not going to be aware of it all the time.
You are obviously one of the, early people talking about inner healing intelligence. Like, is there kind of a parallel there? Are they similar? Are they different? In terms of helping people access that.
No, I think they go hand in hand. I
Mm,
think it's can we define can each of us define spirituality, what it
mm,
means to us, right?
mm, hmm. Yeah,
And so then if I know what it means to somebody that I'm sitting with, then I can attune to that.
yeah.
But I'm also influenced by the openness of my own spirituality, right? Which
Mm,
is really about feeling connected completely to everything in a moment in time,
hmm.
just a moment, and then recognizing that felt sense, like
Yeah.
really embodying that moment.
Hmm.
And for some people, it's actually something very different, right? So, I mean, a question that I like to ask people is what feels like praying?
Oh, interesting. Uh-huh.
What feels like praying?
Yeah.
And then there it is. There
Hmm.
is the connection. There is, because it's not going to be, for some people, they don't, they think of praying as a, but they have an idea of what it means to pray, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
what feels like praying? For me, being with my grandchildren feels like praying.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So do you use that kind of as resource, or how do you use that in your work? And then I'll ask you about your new venture before we close. So, yeah.
It I think as connection, as
Mm,
as the relationship,
mm-hmm,
as me having a relationship with you. If I know what feels like praying to you, like, do you know what feels like praying to you?
mm-hmm. Are you asking me?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Time, stillness, time in nature. These days, I've got a strong relationship with particular trees. So there's actually like right now I'm working with a very hands-on form of prayer, working with plants, and then there's also basic stillness an energetic connection into the stillness.
There it is, right?
Yeah.
And then it would be like, oh yes, yes, then I can
Mm,
see you. Then I can see you
mm.
in that and connect to that spiritual aspect of, yeah.
That's a really beautiful question. Can I can I borrow that question? Because that's a really potent, because that bridges into like resource and trauma recovery and state shift and lots of lovely things. So thank you for that. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about Memoru. Memoru is relatively new. I'm aware of the fact that you've been doing ketamine assisted psychotherapy for a long time, and I did mean to ask you about how you think that fits into the whole thing, but maybe another time. Um, but I saw the launch, I saw the announcement. So, so tell us about that
Uh,
and then how people can find you,
yeah.
how people can
So
connect to you.
it's Memoru is a clinic.
Hmm.
It's Memoru, which is Esperanto for to remember.
Oh.
And I wanted to use a word from Esperanto because Esperanto is about not having borders. It's about
Mhm.
a language that is universal. Um, and so it means to remember. And we started the clinic, we started working on it a couple of years ago. And there's three of us that are here. And we do ketamine training, psilocybin work.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we are training some of the people who are wanting to do this work and finishing the
Mhm.
training. So we do their practicums, their hands-on practicum,
Oh, nice.
and and then we see people and psilocybin for psilocybin sessions and ketamine, and it's just absolutely wonderful and beautiful and hard. It's been a very difficult, challenging journey to get here. But I think now we just, last weekend, we started seeing our first people with psilocybin.
Yay! Oh my gosh. After like the huge loss of MDMA, that's like a big turn of the wheel. Like, I just want to congratulate you for just picking it up and shaking it off and continuing to move on and sticking to the mission.
Yes.
That must have been a really big deal. So,
It feels very good when I
yeah.
sat with the person and I just had my chair just the same way I used to with MDMA, my chair with all my
Mhm.
little snacks beside me, and I'm just there. It was like, oh my God, here I am.
Do you have little dogs still?
Yes.
I've seen the little dogs in the videos.
Yep.
Well, that's exciting. So people could come and they could actually like get on your list to see you for a session, or
Yes,
you or the rest
absolutely.
of the team. They could come to your
Absolutely.
trainings.
Yes,
Excellent.
yes. And so it's memorucenter.org. No, Memoru Center. Oh my gosh, memorucenter.org.
Great.
Because we have two, because you have to divide the entities. You
Ah,
can
mhm.
federally and
Right.
statewide. So we have Memoru, memoru.com,
Okay.
memorucenter.org, both of
Okay, great.
those.
Okay, good. Well, it's a fairly memorable name, so I imagine both come up. Well, one last question. Like, what do you want to share with the world? Like, and in sitting in your place as very clearly a psychedelic elder at this point, and wisdom keeper, expert clinician, trainer all over the world, driver, one of the drivers of the bus. Like, what do you want to say to the people? What would you like to share? What's important to you?
Um, what I want to share for us to respond when the body leans in, to really respond because this body, like our bodies, that is sacred.
Mm, mm,
That is where the wisdom lies.
yeah.
And so, can we lean in to respond to it and
Mm,
to be with it and to take care of it? Because that is actually where the wisdom is. And so
mm,
we all have it.
yeah. Yeah. And that's a lot of layers in that, what you just said. So, well, I appreciate you. I just want to share my heartfelt thanks and, for this interview and the time that you share, but also just for what you have brought to all of us who are involved in the psychedelic assisted psychotherapy space. We certainly would not be here were it not for your efforts. And so I want to
Oh,
just acknowledge that and thank you for that and just really appreciate you. So,
thank you. Thank you a lot.
yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Living Medicine. We'll see you again next time. Be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.